Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. This is an off-topic reaction. Dr. Phil, still at it. What is he, like 90? He's
Gotta
still at it.
He is still around. Yes, and actually, it looks like he started his own studio. He's got his own thing going on, and he has actually been addressing a lot of hot topics, a lot of relevant topics.
He's got them Gen Z in the studio behind him and the producers.
I've actually been kind of surprised. He's had some pretty based takes. He did a show recently on schools transitioning children without parental consent, and he was very firm on
straight to jail.
Being against that. Yeah, straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
So yeah, he's actually you guys will probably see us react to Dr. Phil occasionally because he's been talking about some of these topics, and he's got guests on that need Jesus.
Okay.
So
we're gonna take a listen. I guess they're talking about trad wives, and we just want to give our biblical understanding, our hermeneutic worldview take.
Yes, and so I have edited multiple versions of this video in case the stream gets shut off and we need to switch to a more edited version. So this first one, I'm hoping we can watch the first one because I didn't change the sound for this first one. The second one is going to be a little sped up chipmunk voices. But so let's just pray we can watch it without having to switch over to the chipmunk voices.
We'll see how it goes. All right, let's get it.
That's how I picture what's happening to the American family today. We are in a vicious cycle that is spinning families out of control. Now, in the 60s, 73% of all children lived in two-parent homes. Today, that number is down to 46%.
46% is bad, but I didn't realize that it was 60% in the 60s or
73%.
So that seems, was it the tail end of the 60s after the revolution, the sexual revolution?
Probably. I can tell you that I stumbled upon some documentaries from the 60s, and these documentaries were about welfare mothers and welfare children, and certain communities being encouraged to not get married and not have fathers in the homes because they got more benefits and they would lose their benefits if they were getting married. So, I mean, as far back as the mid 60s, they were actually doing documentaries about the topic. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just surprised it was even that low in the 60s.
Yeah.
So,
how do we get the American family to stop spinning out of control? There's a trend that's taken social media by storm, but has feminists up in arms. It's called the trad wife, largely made up of millennials and Gen Zs. They're women who are choosing to leave the workforce behind so they can be full-time homemakers. They adhere to traditional gender roles and put their spouse's needs first. Could the trad wife movement help strengthen the American family unit?
Okay. He just described the trad wife movement, and he slipped in there that the wife puts their husband's needs first, not the family's needs first. So it's like already it doesn't sound like a very fair description of the concept of a traditional wife. Like I would never assume this is my weird understanding, but I would never assume that a traditional wife by description means that the woman is going to put the husband's needs first, because it's like you're working as a unit to make sure the family's good. It's not just about, putting the husband on a pedestal. So the husband's already given 110% and sacrificing his whole life to make sure the needs of the family are good.
Yeah.
That would be a traditional husband.
Yeah.
Right. So like, why is this weird slanting language of, oh, the wife is just putting the husband's needs first instead of the whole family?
Well, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk and bring the conversation to the community about is what really is being a traditional wife, because this trad wife label that's really popular right now, it's really hearkening back to a very specific time in American history. It's not hearkening back to true traditional marriage, which I would argue, a lot of women, even in the trad wife movement, would not want to go to actual traditional marriage. If we were to look at how marriage has been practiced throughout mankind's history, it's a big reason why women in the late 1800s started rebelling against it. So that was another thing that I wanted to bring before people to say, this trad wife thing is really focusing on a 1950s TV show ideal. It's
Yeah.
because I don't think all women in the 1950s were just bouncing around with beautiful curls and their pretty house dresses and, you know, making sure dad's food is hot before everybody else gets fed. So that was another reason I thought this would be an interesting conversation to have, because what really is a traditional wife?
I ain't saying that's the answer. I'm just asking the question. Some women say, no way. They believe the trad wife lifestyle turns women into second-class citizens and is a front to everything women have fought for over the past 100 years. And women have fought a lot of hard battles, from the ability to own property to the battle for equal pay, to the right to vote. Women have fought to even have a credit card in their own name. I mean, look at all the things that women have fought.
Okay, so Dr. Phil is definitely presenting this from a pro-feminist perspective.
He's towing the line. I would encourage everyone to go watch the full episode because I have cut out clips for us to talk about. But he does, he toes the line. I think we're going to get to the end and we're going to hear him talk about some statistics that are very frightening. And he does at the end seem to be pro-family, pro-marriage, and certainly anti single parent households because he knows the statistics.
Okay, well, as far as the hard-won battles that he's putting on screen here for the women, does he bring up the correlation that because women can now get credit cards in their name, as of today, they are the number one demographic with the highest amount of debt?
No, and actually, I'm glad you paused it here because I wanted to talk about that particular one. So many women bring that one up, and I'm like, honey, please stop using that as a pro of feminism because I'm sorry, credit card debt is bondage for all of us, you know, whether you're male or female. And I see that as something that was more of a protection of women, you know, that we wouldn't get ourselves. I mean, I think women should have been allowed to have their own bank account and their own debit card, but this whole women had to have a right to have a credit card thing. I'm kind of like, you guys really seeing credit cards as some kind of bastion of freedom or something? Because it's not. It's another form of slavery.
And how many divorce situations does the judge say, all right, the husband has $60,000 in credit card debt, half of that goes to the wife?
No, never. My dad got all of the debt in their divorce.
Yeah.
Never.
So the concept in the past, 60, 70 years ago, before women were allowed to go in and get their own credit card under their own credit limit name. And remember, all this is in order to make every single member of the family another cog in the wheel of big industry. This is an old Rockefeller plan. This is an old, so this is something from the early 20th century that they wanted more taxpayers. They wanted more people working, making income. It actually dropped the average median wage for men when women entered in the workforce because they were always typically work less hours due to a variety of health reasons. And they choose jobs that do not pay as much because they're not as dangerous in most cases. So it actually, overall, it dropped the median average for men's pay. But then they also wanted a credit card because they did not want to have to go to their husband to co-sign to give them a credit card, right? So now the women are straddled with their own bad decisions and debt of credit card, which the husband may not be any the wiser about. He may not even know about it.
Oh yeah, that's a big problem in marriages is hidden debt. And you know, men struggle with it too, but definitely it seems to more often be the wife who's hiding a big mountain of credit card debt that she's too afraid to tell her husband about. Really? I mean, there's a whole storyline in my polygamy show, my Big Love show, about one of his wives. She had a whole shoebox full of credit card receipts under her bed that she was hiding from him, like 60 grand in credit card debt. It's a good thing he wasn't legally married to her.
No shoeboxes in our house, please.
Just playing, guys. But yeah, that's one thing I always hear these feminists talk about. Oh, we had to fight for our right to have a credit card debt. I'm like, listen to yourself, honey.
And what's crazier though is using this battle language. They're fighting. Okay.
Yeah.
If women actually achieved what most modern day fourth wave feminists scream for women to achieve, it would weaken the nation so fast that other countries who do not abide by this ideology, who hold to a very oppressive form of trad wife, would swoop in and take over this nation And then these women would also be back to more oppression than what they claim to have been under in the early 20th century. And that's the ironic part, in my opinion, is like, oh, you want to continue. He opens the show saying this country's spiraling.
Yeah.
With these families. Okay. That is what communism does. It destroys the nuclear family.
Yeah.
So it can be weakened for the sake of revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And this is I would suggest this is the plague of Leviticus 26.
Yeah.
This is when people move away from God's covenant, his commandments. You weaken yourself to the nations internally. You become sick and diseased with a mentality, as it describes further on in other places, Deuteronomy 27, the curses of abandoning the covenant. You receive a mentality of you're going to plant something, but you're not going to sow from it. You're going to marry a wife, but someone else will take her from you. We are seeing that in droves today, right? Communism always steals the farmland. What are big corps doing right now, trying to buy all the farmland? Same thing in South Africa. They immediately go after when they decided, oh, we're going to take over and get our own version of reparations. They immediately start killing all the farmers and going after the farmland. Same thing with the Bolshevik Revolution. Same thing always. And then, of course, what's the next thing they do? There is a sexual depravity in the society, which are some of the most popular reels and TikToks and shorts that you watch that come up as people being interviewed on the street talking about how many people have you slept with? Oh, you're married and you're here with this guy tonight on the street, but your husband don't know. Okay, well, hopefully he won't see this video. Like, those are abundant videos, right? So it's a very interesting concept that the curses that God plainly said, look, this is what's going to happen to your society, and it's going to weaken you so that then you'll be invaded and taken over. And the country that's going to invade you, no other country in the earth shares this ideology. Maybe Australia, but they're not invading anybody. They don't even have guns. No other country, no other formidable, imposing, threatening style country has this ideology successfully.
True.
You ever thought about that? China doesn't abide by this.
China doesn't, and China is actually true communists, and they don't abide by this. They have other ways of demonically crippling their population. Same with Russia. But that's something I just want to remind people, because I've been having a conversation on my personal channel about, some people being upset about us doing these reaction topics. And these people are saying they don't think we should be bothering with man-made ideologies. That's just secular worldly stuff. This is a demonic ideology, just the same as the Trinity. I mean, the Trinity is a man-made ideology, and Sean has spent years dissecting that and breaking it down for people and showing people why it's folly. This is feminism. Feminism is not just some man-made ideology. This is something that was directly inspired by demons. The original women who started this movement were spiritualists. Okay, so this is part of the spiritual battle, because we're all seeing the long-term effects of this demonic ideology on the family and on marriages in our country. We're watching it all firsthand. Some of us have experienced it firsthand. So yeah, I just want to remind people, communism, feminism, these kind of thought processes, these don't just pop up out of nowhere. They're inspired by unclean spirits. I'm going to turn this fan off.
Okay.
But first, Esty, she is the face of the trad wife movement. She is very, very popular on social media with over 25 million views. Esty says she's trying to teach women and men that going back in time will make our society a better place. Take a look.
A couple years ago, I was in college pursuing meteorology. That was considered great. A couple years ago, I was into the bodybuilding industry and I was into fitness modeling. That was awesome. However, when I decide I want to drop out of college and become a traditional wife, and my only goal in life is to be an amazing wife and mother, that's when eyebrows seem to raise. Being a traditional wife is so much more than just cooking and cleaning and wearing house dresses. We wives budget down hard. There is times where you don't get what you want, and that's okay.
A day in the life of a trad wife is really very busy.
I kind of sped this up.
I've never heard the term budget down hard.
I don't want to be mean to this girl or anything.
No.
I think she's sweet and she has good intentions. I don't know.
You are busy. Did that say
I'm just
you
gonna
were
say I
putting
don't
on?
know that I would choose the same wardrobe
Right.
if I was going to be
she's-
making these
right.
videos.
She's choosing a hyperbolic representation.
Not just that, but it's very form fitting.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, it's not modest in the sense.
Yeah,
that,
she's got very, and the way she's angling her camera, if I was discipling her,
Yeah.
I would encourage her to maybe work on her wardrobe.
She's leaning into what she knows to get clicks.
Yes, because there is a 50s trad wife, an idea of that, and there's also a 50s pinup trad
Right,
wife.
right.
And bless her heart, she's a beautiful girl. I'm not hating on her for that, but she's definitely leaning into more of the pinup style trad wife. So that would be one area that I think could be confusing to young women who may be following her and thinking that this is biblical wifery, that this is biblical womanhood. Because as a biblical woman who practices modesty, I would not be comfortable in some of those outfits.
Yeah. She's, like I said, she's put her finger in the air, and she knows what gets, where the wind blows in social media and what gets the clicks as far as how she presents herself.
Makeup for an hour and a half
Makeup and hair, yeah.
to not go anywhere?
Well, you gotta go to the grocery store.
And you said you don't ever.
So real quick though, I know Dr. Phil's, I guess, trying to be joking or whatever, but say you're not a trad wife, say you're just a normal feminist woman who thinks she's an egalitarian relationship with her husband. They also spend sometimes an hour on makeup and hair.
Sure.
In whatever beauty routine they have getting ready for the day. And they also go somewhere. Where do they go? If it's not the grocery, they also go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
They also go, well, I mean, they may be going to hot yoga or something, but like, where does he think that they're going? Right. So I guess what I'm getting at is there's this weird dichotomy being presented that only the trad wife is a stay-at-home mother who takes care of herself and is responsible for the errands of the house, versus, are we assuming that a feminist lady doesn't take care of herself and her upkeep and doesn't go to the grocery store and take care of the general needs of the house?
I know. And if we watch the rest of this little segment, we're going to see he's trying to be funny, because there's a couple other moments where he looks over at his wife to like make a joke about, oh, you don't do that. Oh, you have those sweatpants, so I don't think Dr. Phil was trying to make any kind of a statement with this. I think he's trying to be funny for the show of it.
He's trying to do some banter.
Yeah.
Wear sweatpants?
I have one pair and I don't wear it often, no.
Why are you hiding your face?
Why are you
That's his
looking
wife.
at me?
I'm
Robin.
just curious. Okay, you said you submit to your husband.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a tick. It's not. I'm not trying to start trouble. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think the term submit has gotten such a bad rep, and it's gotten completely twisted in the media.
Uh-huh.
I actually blame the twisting of this word from the industry, and it has this weird BDSM connection, and a lot of people think it's degrading and that the woman is less than a man, but biblical submission is what traditional wives talk about, and that means that the husband has the ultimate authority in the home, and this is from the Bible, and there's a lot of different opinions about that, but in my marriage, we follow that.
Yeah, well, the Bible says women submit to your husband, but then it says husbands love your wives as you love the church.
Absolutely.
So there's a duty on both. When we come back, Este's husband says he's the envy of all his friends. We'll find out why, like we don't know, when we meet him next.
You can have a wife who stays home, adheres to traditional gender roles, but she might not believe in submitting to her husband. One of the differences with traditional wives is our priorities and our values. Christian traditional wives believe in biblical submission.
That filter is not helping his beard. It looks like he got a fade on his beard.
And this does not mean the wife is of less value than the husband, but our husbands do have the most authority in our marriages.
Este is what is called a trad wife. Now, that's short for traditional wife who chooses to live a lifestyle that has a lot of women seeing red. Not everyone, but a lot of women seeing red. Now, trad wives have turned away from feminist ideals in favor of homemaking and taking care of the family. Now, Esty says that is not being a second-class citizen. It is not at all a bad thing. Now, she's been married to Connor for a year, and he says this lifestyle is exactly what he wants.
My life as a traditional husband is great. I have a clean home to come home to, and I also have food on the table.
We're making some pasta from scratch.
It puts a smile on my face when I get home that my wife is prettied up for me. She's done her makeup and has a pretty apron on.
Why wouldn't we dress up to see the most important person of our life, which is our husband?
I think most men would like to have a traditional wife. My coworkers that have actually said,
What am I doing wrong with this mouse?
I don't know. It's just the far left-hand side.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have commentary?
Yeah, did you? I thought
You,
went to stop it.
you first. I thought you went to stop it first. You grabbed the mouse.
Okay.
And,
I just want to make sure I'm okay. There we go.
okay.
I don't disagree with this concept of making ourselves look nice for our husbands. I do think, again, I think there's a little bit of an exaggerated message coming from this gal. I also think they're young. They're clearly newlyweds. They do not have children yet. So, you know, I'm glad that I have a husband that I know. Am I there? Are we there?
Sorry, my camera's just doing weird things suddenly out of nowhere. Try to keep talking, sweetie. I'm just trying to work with something. Trying to get this.
So I would encourage women out there that I think it's a good thing to look pretty for our husbands and to put a little effort in and to not be walking around in our pajamas all day. You know, we're also kind of in a community of people who have seem to have a little bit less of a focus on, you know, makeup and, you know, spending an hour and a half a day on your makeup and your hair as a housewife. For me, would be a little excessive, but I've also always been very low maintenance when it comes to getting ready for things. Like when Sean and I are going out for a date, I do put makeup on, but I really only wear eyeliner and mascara. And I might, you know, take the flat iron to my hair and, you know, put my hair up maybe. But that's kind of all it's ever taken me to get ready. I've never been one of those girls that, you know, took hours and hours and hours to put my face on. So I can't really identify with that, I guess. I don't want to denigrate her or anything. I also just want other women to know out there that being a traditional wife doesn't necessarily require you to spend that kind of time on your looks every day. I mean, coming from a biblical perspective, we want to be aware of vanity, you know, and how much of this really is biblical and traditional and how much of this is more, again, the caricature of traditional wives coming from the 1950s era. So.
I gotta listen. So basically, I apologize. I was trying to work with the camera to get it going. I didn't absorb much of what you just said, but the idea of it seems to be, again, she seems to be going like to the extreme with some of these ideas where she's dressed as if she's about to go out for an evening.
Yeah.
I think while most men would appreciate coming home if they're gone all day at a job and they come home to see their wife, that she, you know,
put a little effort in.
Maybe isn't, you know, extremely smelly and hair all over the place and food stains on her face and a shirt that is dripped in water. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's an extreme there versus being dolled up, you know, versus, okay, I don't try to walk around the house as if I just woke up.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, even I work from the home, but even while working at home, I get ready for the day, brush my teeth, comb my hair, get dressed, and then go give you a kiss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how we engage throughout the day. So I just feel like this is kind of like pushing things to the extreme.
Like, man, you're super lucky. I want a lifestyle like you.
My husband does not have to lift a finger when he is at home.
When I met Esty, I was 20 years old and Esty was 22.
I was going to college to please my parents, but I secretly wanted to be a traditional wife.
Before I met Esty, I never really dated, not even casually dated, but when I met Esty, I knew that she was the one and that we were a match made in heaven.
We don't do opposite sex friendships. I don't think a woman needs to have a male best friend.
A modern man would feel much more insecure than I do as a traditional husband.
I don't mind at all
It's a
when I
weak
have to
kiss,
call you and
bro.
check in and make sure you're okay with me going somewhere.
In our marriage, we don't have arguments. I'm the leader of the marriage. I'm the one that's responsible for coming up with a solution. And Esty does not ever talk back to me.
Okay, so again, I just want to remind people that they are newlyweds, because this is another thing that I think can be a harmful type of messaging, that if you're trying to practice this traditional trad wife, then there's never going to be arguments in your house, and your wife is never allowed to talk back, which, let's define that, and her saying, my husband doesn't have to lift a finger when he's home. That's another part of this messaging coming from not just her, but Andrew Wilson's wife puts out this same messaging that, oh yeah, my husband does not lift, he doesn't take out the trash, he doesn't do a single dish, he doesn't wipe up his own crumbs off the table, so I feel like some of this is taking it a bit to the extreme, where I think if I'm the stay-at-home wife, I'm absolutely doing more of the household chores. Like, that's just plain and simple. But if my husband, if I'm taking a shower and my husband's watching the baby while I take a shower and he goes ahead and loads the dishwasher for me, that's a wonderful thing. And that doesn't mean that I'm no longer a traditional wife and that Sean's no longer a traditional biblical husband.
That's my own desire to see. I want to see it cleaned. I clean it.
Yes. And we want to teach our son that when he grows up, he's going to have to clean up after himself. He's not guaranteed to just hit 20 years old and automatically have a wife who's going to do all his cleaning for him. To me, there's an important concept of the whole family being involved in caring for the house once children are around. I like to follow a Montessori style approach to parenting. And that's a big part of it, is including your child in the family life, the everyday family life. And part of that is cleaning up and doing chores and cleaning up after ourselves. And so, I kind of, I feel like this, I don't like to be one of those people that's like, oh, this is problematic or anything like that. But I do think that for young, inexperienced women who may not know any better, who are following accounts like these, they might be getting a little bit of a harmful message here, that, and the men too, that, oh yeah, you get a wife and she just cleans up everything after you and you never lift a finger. I mean, that to me, that seems really immature. Yeah,
that we've talked about this in previous videos. The man should be dedicated to, he should be fully committed to be able to do everything in the home. Mm-hmm. That's the mindset that I would encourage men to have. Like, you need to be committed to be able to do all this yourself, because you're going to have to if you get divorced, or if, God forbid, your wife passes. So you're going to have to anyway at that point. But you should be committed in your heart and mind to be able to be disciplined, to be able to do those things. I'm not saying you got to be like perfectly on top of them, but at least be committed to be able to do them. And then when the wife helps you as your helpmate, then you realize how much of a blessing, how much is taken off of, how much value she is providing in that home, because you now moved out of the mindset of, how am I going to do all this? Oh, I've got someone to help me because we're partners in this.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the concept of talking back or objecting,
Yeah. Tell me what you think about that.
Random what are we defining as talking back?
Yeah.
Okay. If a man is like, hey, our finances are struggling, we may have to sell the car and get a less expensive car. And the wife says, never, I'm never giving up my, who knows what, my Chevy Malibu or whatever she's got that she likes. I'm never giving up my Lexus, whatever. And he's like, we can't afford it. And she's like, I'm not doing it. We can't, you're gonna have to figure something else out. That's a negative talk back. Mm-hmm. Okay. If she's like, can you help me understand why we have to do this?
Yes.
That's not talking back.
Yeah.
That's saying, hey, can you just help me understand why we're making this decision? That's the same kind of conversation you're going to have with a 8-year-old child when you come home with a new car, and the child goes, where's the old car, daddy? And this is a new car. This is a different car, daddy.
Well, and also I think the wife saying what she would prefer, like if Sean and I were in this type of situation, I would tell him I would prefer not to sell our car if we can avoid it. But if we can't avoid it, that's your decision. You let me know. So that's kind of how I feel the dynamic should go, where, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a wife having an opinion on a life decision like that, but
Right.
ultimately saying, look, here's my opinion on it, but ultimately it's your choice. And if that's what you decide, that's what you've decided needs to be done. And I'm going to trust your guidance on that. I'm going to trust your choice. So that's, but I think that this messaging, especially in the Torah community, can reach some really dysfunctional ears, some really backwoods men who hear this and think women need to shut up. They are not allowed to they're not allowed to tell me they disagree. They're not allowed to have an opinion, that kind of approach to marriage, and then these men wonder why their wives leave them in a country where they can go legally get a divorce. These men wonder why their children are rebelling and their wives want to leave them,
Also, we have biblical example on this, right? We have Ishmael, Abraham, Isaac being born.
Yeah, that whole debacle.
Hagar and Ishmael becoming kind of a disdain in the eyes of Sarah.
Mhm.
And Sarah says, send them away. Abraham's like, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that. And an angel has to show up and say,
Yeah.
in this matter, Abraham, listen to your wife.
And
That's a humbling moment for Abraham, I'm sure. Did he protest after it went to a higher authority? Now, in that moment, he was going to say no.
yeah.
But then God stepped in and said, in this occasion, Abraham, listen to your wife. Now, previously, before that, in Genesis chapter 20, we have Abraham, or I think it's actually in chapter 12. In chapter 20, when the king of Egypt takes his wife because he said it was his sister.
Yeah.
Did the wife protest? Nope, she went along with it.
Yeah.
She also had recognized the danger of this culture, thinking
Right.
they're just going to kidnap me anyway and kill you if I'm your wife, because they like to steal wives.
Yeah.
Remember that decrepit culture I was talking about earlier?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the environment they were in. Strangely enough, the king of Egypt at that time actually had some morals and wasn't trying to do that.
Right.
And he viewed Abraham as a prophet and wouldn't disrespect him like that. But Abraham didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And he and Sarah together, Sarah took his lead on that,
Mhm.
even though there's a lot of debate as far as like, is it truly his sister from
Yeah,
another mother?
yeah.
What's going on there? Did he lie? Either way, she took his lead on that. And then all this shenanigans unfolded as a result of that.
Yeah.
So there's been some moments where Abraham is a wonderful, loving, good patriarch,
Mhm.
and everyone in his household, not just his wife, both wives, and 300 plus trained men with all their wives and children follow Abraham's lead. And then there's other moments where Abraham is wrong and needs the counsel of his wife.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even the conception of Ishmael, that whole thing was Sarah's idea.
Which he should have, in my opinion, I would have went to it. I
He
would have been
should
like,
nixed
God,
that out. Yeah.
you've
Same with Jacob.
I need an angel here. I need an angel
yeah,
here.
Jacob too, because that was Leah and Rachel's idea as well. But
I mean, I'm not saying Abraham's sitting there going, ooh, a second wife.
no, it sounded like he actually, wasn't. He was like, "What? You want me to what?"
I submit and I serve my husband.
I'm sorry. Now,
Look, I just want to say that even I am guilty of a little bit of the experienced cynicism here as I watch this girl's videos, because as much as I hate to admit it, I am absolutely a person now who understands you grow with each year of marriage and you come to understand deeper and deeper things. And then you also grow a lot when you have children. And so, this idyllic kind of life that they've got going on, I had to try and stop myself from being that cynical person that's like, oh, wait until you have kids, wait until you're 6 years in, so I just want to say, I think it's normal for a lot of people to look at this hyper idealized version of trad wifery and think, be a little cynical about it like they are here.
Neha says that she isn't the only woman who thinks this movement is setting women back to a.
So there was a whole clip of this other lady talking that I clipped out. If you want to go watch the full episode, she's got basically the typical feminist complaints about this that you would think. But then we're going to see a Christian woman on here who's on the side of the trad wife. She seems to be on the side of this trad wife movement is unhealthy or problematic. She doesn't really quite get into it, but we'll see who it is here.
Time when they had much fewer rights. Now, Allie is a conservative Christian commentator, author, speaker, and podcast
Allie
host.
Stuckey.
And Mara oversees 500 employees, including her husband.
Is that Botox or she just got a
It's
boxing
the
match?
cartoon. I think it's more of the filter. She didn't look quite that bloated in the original video.
Both women say the trad wife movement, well,
But did
it's
you hear
just
that?
not for them.
Let's back it up a little bit.
The woman that he introduced second runs a company, and she's her husband's boss.
The dark-haired lady?
Yes.
Okay.
What you've been listening to everything we've been talking about. What's jumping out at you?
Yeah, so I am a conservative Christian, and I do believe in traditional gender roles as defined by the Bible, and I do work outside the home. So I guess maybe you would categorize me somewhere in between sourdough starter and girl boss. And yes, at the end of the day, my husband is the head of our household. He is the leader of our family. And so when it comes to those big decisions and when push comes to shove, he's the one that takes the lead.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel second class because of that?
Not at all. Not at all. My husband loves me and respects me very well. And he actually we work together. So he's kind of my business manager. And he has always been immensely supportive of what I do. He would probably say that's part of why he fell in love with me. And so we just work well together.
Yeah. Mara, what's your take on all of this?
My take is a lot different. I come from a home where I was raised by a single mom. So I watched my mom take over the household. In fact, my father died when I was 6 years old.
Okay, so one thing I want to point out is that's a widow.
Mm-hmm.
When you say I was raised by a single mom, look, I get it. Like, just literally speaking, she was the single parent in the household, but single mom has a different connotation than widow. And it's a totally different set of circumstances. So, and I'm not bashing single moms with that. I'm just saying it's very different when your mom's a widow. And she wasn't just a single mom, who got knocked up when she was a teenager or something. Like your dad died.
Yeah.
Her husband died.
Mother's a widower.
Yeah.
Or a widow. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Widow.
So if I had to ask you a question before I continue answering yours, my question for you
sorry,
would
guys,
be...
just 1 second. But the point of it is the mother who's a widow, now single because the father died, is not encouraging independence because I would say her goal wasn't, oh, you need to be an independent woman because you don't need no man.
Right.
She literally had a man.
Yeah.
She had you with a man.
It's a different it's a different environment in your household completely because yes, your mom's mindset could be totally different if she was widowed and she didn't divorce her husband because she was unhappy or I highly doubt she was raising her daughter with this concept of you can never know if a man's going to stay, so make your own money, so it is different.
Yeah, I knew a family many years ago that the mom was like, we were with them. We were like, there was some kids together. We were with the mom, and the mom like went by the ATM machine and pulled out like $600. And one of her children was like, "What's that for?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing. It's just going to go into our savings." And then find out like years later from one of the kids that the mom had been squirreling away money like that because she thought if anything ever happens to the husband.
Oh, I remember that. Okay, I remember who you're talking about. Yeah.
And meanwhile,
and they're still married to this day, aren't they?
Meanwhile, she already had access to all the husband's accounts.
Right.
But she was still taking money out, telling the husband, "Oh, we went shopping," but she's just putting $600 away in her own personal stash.
Now they're still married to this day, right?
Yeah.
What would happen, heaven forbid, your husband wasn't there, whether you got divorced or he died? Then what happens? Would you be able to upkeep the household? I mean, where would that leave you?
I believe that no matter if you are a traditional wife or a modern woman with a career, if your husband were to pass away, everything goes to scrap and you have to start over no matter what. Like, if you were if your home was depending on two incomes, you would still have to sell your home. You would still have to figure it out. So no matter what, I do believe that there is a change that's going to happen, and a huge change. But in terms of traditional marriage, a lot of women would go back to their under their father's roof, their biological parents' roof, and figure it out from there. I'm not incapable of course, making money. Obviously, I did not finish my college degree, so I don't have a degree. I don't have much work experience besides nannying, which obviously I guess is not super applicable, but I would figure it out and I would pray, and the Lord has a purpose no matter what happens to you.
Right.
See, that's the part that all these feminists totally ignore. It's like, yeah, if my husband passes away, whether I'm working or I'm a stay-at-home wife, that's a huge tragedy, a huge shakeup to my life on every level. Like, one thing I wanted to encourage people with this topic here is when I was talking to Sean about the reasons I didn't want to have children. And he said to me, sweetie, we don't make decisions based on fear. And you guys, that is the day that the switch flipped in my brain and I decided I wanted to have kids, because I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. The reason I don't want to have children is all related to fear and, by extension, lack of trust in the Lord. So for those who may not realize it, Levi is a huge testimony to my husband's heart and attitude being a direct influence on my heart and attitude. And he's a huge testimony of my leap of faith, for lack of a better word, in showing God that I really trust him, because I didn't otherwise. It was like, I'm going to control this situation. I'm going to keep from bringing a child into this horrible world because all these bad things could happen to him or us. And it was Sean and the Lord who showed me, you're just acting out of fear. And that the woman who's now, I feel very sorry for this woman. She's probably needs to work through some prayers for an orphan spirit. This woman whose father passed away. To me, it makes sense that her mindset is survival and what if he dies. And so she's put her whole soul and life into creating this career for herself that will sustain her, whether her husband, who works below her, passes away or not. So that's another thing that I see a lot of feminists moving in, is a spirit of fear, a mindset of fear, and making choices based on fear.
And I want to compliment you. You did really, really great while pregnant, while in delivery, of overcoming all those fears. Because boy, we had things to fear. But gosh, even I was tempted when little Levi wasn't breathing, and they were trying to fly him away to a NICU in another state, and I was like, no. And I prayed for him, and then to the doctor's surprise, he suddenly started breathing again, and it was a wild 44 hours. Was that what it was?
48
hours. 48 hours of delivery. It was a wild 2 days.
Every hour counts.
Yeah. So I just want to give you big, commendation, if you will, for overcoming your fears, because it was not a smooth delivery.
Yeah.
And, but we have an extremely healthy baby, wonderful, smart, blessed by God. And, we've kept him alive so far.
Yeah, because he's constantly trying to off himself.
Constantly trying to kill himself.
Like it's his job.
I'm like, he's not like my first son. My first son was much more docile. This kid is trying to hurt himself daily.
100% boy.
Yeah, it's wild.
That's interesting. Yeah. So for me, right, I do believe in God. I have the same pretty much traditional values, but in my case,
just real quick to Lenny in the chat. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have life insurance. This is as someone that used to sell life insurance, but a lot of people don't have it. So it's actually not the norm. The average person in the United States does not have life insurance for the breadwinner and the family, and so it becomes a serious issue for whenever there's tragedy like this. In fact, there's actually a joke about this from it was a black comedian was telling this joke. Okay. And he was saying how Black people don't have life insurance, so whenever people die, it's like a true tragedy, and everyone's crying at the funeral. But when a white person dies, the widow pulls up in a new vet, and she gets out, and she nods her head a little bit, and she leaves because she just got tax-free 100,000 or $1 million or whatever. So anyway, yeah, it's money makes the grieving process a lot less. It was the joke, but I don't agree with that.
Yeah, and I just want to point out this gal responding. I think she felt a little bit of trigger, and that's why she's like, that's interesting. Yeah, I believe in God too. Because it's like, but SD did point out the flaw in this woman's logic that, well, don't you trust God? Yes, your husband could die. I could die. Our child could die. Our parents could die. I mean, the way that these people think, it's like all of us should actually just be lemmings and go jump off the cliffs because life is so scary and there's so many risks everywhere we go. We all might as well be dead. There's just too many risks to living.
Yeah, it's a spirit of fear that a lot of people will never want to admit that that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because they're being told that they're independent boss babes.
Yeah.
But it's the veneer, it's the whitewashed tomb of their internal, just nothing motivated but fear. It's all it is.
Yeah.
I feel like being a businesswoman is only a part of who I am. It doesn't define me. So being a housewife, like, while I respect all of that, I also feel like for me, I need to be happy with me in order to maintain a happy life, right?
But that's how you defined yourself, Missy.
Yeah.
You introduced yourself as a businesswoman. You didn't
Yeah.
introduce yourself
As a wife and mother.
as a wife or a mother,
Yeah.
a faithful wife or a proud mother. Like you were like, I own a company. I'm a working independent woman. Okay, good. You know, a long time ago, after my divorce and I was, trying to meet women again, and I should not have been at this point. This is why after this point I stopped for a long time. Then, but anyway, I was talking to this girl one night, and I said to her, so like, what do you like to do? Like, what are your hobbies and stuff outside of work? And this girl got extremely mad, and she thought that was like the most offensive question possible, and just completely didn't want to talk to me anymore because she thought she had nothing to say. Her life was work. She had no hobbies, and she was not investing in herself, in any type of, positive growth and building, nothing spiritual. And she had nothing to say. And she got extremely upset and thought I was judging her for being shallow because I asked her, oh, cool. That's cool. Well, yeah, hobbies are great and everything, but what do you like to do for yourself? Like, what do you, I thought it was a normal question. It was not, apparently. So some people are walking around with massive insecurities that they're constantly hiding with this modern feminist narrative, which is, I don't need a man. I'm taking care of everything on my own. And it's just, you're refusing to trust and love again,
Yeah.
For all the men out there, if you're actually watching this, there's a X-Men movie, Days of Future Past, when old Charles is telling young Charles, we need you to hope again. Right? That's my message for all these hurt feminists. We need you to hope again. That's what the Holy Spirit is shouting into their hearts.
So a lot of that includes, yes, I tend to my husband, but you know what? My husband also tends to me. We do it together. My husband doesn't always take the lead. I am his boss at work. But you know what? I feel like a marriage is a partnership. And when we do it together, we have double the results. It's not just one relying on the other, but really relying on each other to encompass an entire life together. So a little different from the way that you're brought up. And on your Instagram, you talk about society and pushing independence on young children. So my question to you is, this ideology that you have, is this something that you would, if you have a daughter, is that something that you would press upon your daughter to become a trad wife, or would you be supportive as to whatever she chose to do?
I would definitely want my daughter to prioritize her family, her home, her husband above all else. I would want to instill confidence so that she could choose the right husband, because that ultimately is the most important thing in this lifestyle, is marrying the right man and understanding your man's character before you marry. But I believe that a lot of women do have rose-colored glasses on when they're dating, and then when they get married, this is when they have this crisis of, who did I marry? What is gonna happen? And they believe in a backup plan, and they don't have that confidence within their marriage.
Yeah, getting papers on him doesn't change it. Trust me.
Yeah, I actually had a girl tell me one time I was her backup plan. Yeah. And anyway, that's a long
that's
story.
romantic.
But yes, this idea of you're training your daughter up to be an independent boss babe, first and foremost. She's never going to value the relationship aspect
Yeah.
of the vulnerability, the sensitivity, the connection that she needs to build with that man, as well as how to choose a good man. She's never going to learn those skills,
Right.
because you're not training her up in the way she should go like that. You're training her up in the way that she should go to be a boss babe. So what is that logically going to entail in this culture?
Right.
That entails, date for fun, because the girl's still probably going to date. She wants human interaction. But if it's not being stressed on you're dating to marry, therefore you're evaluating someone properly, then that means the only other resort is you're dating for fun, you're dating for experience, so to speak, which is basically you're training up someone for the streets.
Mm-hmm.
You're training a young woman to view a huge segment of her life, and this is actually very common, where girls will be like, "Oh, well, I'm not getting married till 27."
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing between now and then,
Yeah.
Miss 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Who's with the low cut shirt and the high cut shirt and skirt, and like, what are you doing now? You're gonna go travel, finish college, get into your career, become a boss babe until 27, and then suddenly you're gonna try to back out of all that, or you're suddenly gonna try to find a man after you've had how many partners at that point? You're gonna go engage in drugs and drunkenness. You're gonna so. I guess what I'm trying to get at is for the mom just to focus on, I'm raising my daughter to be. I want her to be independent and to make sure she can take care of herself. Well, why is it not a skill of taking care of yourself to be able to choose the right partner?
Exactly. And I posted this status a few weeks ago, and actually people really responded to it. And it was just a simple statement that part of raising girls to become good wives is teaching them how to recognize red flags in men and teaching them how to choose godly men, because that your husband sets the tone for your marriage. And I know a lot of men right now really are in denial about this, because I understand that for many, many years, women have been saying in this feminist crowd, but men, and blaming everything on men. And I think they're going from a wrong approach. I see it from the Adam and Eve perspective. Okay. Eve screwed up, right? Eve absolutely screwed up. Adam should have corrected her. He should have guided her. He should have said, no, put that back. We are not eating that. I'm the boss. I'm more educated on this than you. God has taught me more than you.
I've been here a whole 14 days more than you.
Exactly. I've been here longer than you. I've known him a little bit longer. Let's not do that. And guys, men want to, they want to have this spiritual authority in the home and say, I'm the head of the home and I make all the decisions. And then they want to act like how they act in their home and how they treat their wives and their children should have no effect on how their children and their wives behave. So, it's really important. Part of the reason I wanted to start doing these shows was to impart some experience and wisdom from Sean onto you men out there, because I'm trying to tell you guys, your wife will gladly submit to your leading if you're loving her like Christ. If you're not demeaning her, if you're not verbally abusing her, if you're not putting her down, if you're not telling her to submit just to submit because I say so, like if you're not lording over her, your authority, then you're going to have a wife. I'm trying to tell you guys, it is so easy for me to look at my husband and trust his decisions and trust that he's leading us in the right ways. Even if I may not agree on something, I'll shut my mouth about it and let's see where it goes, because he doesn't lord his authority over me. I don't know how to get it through to you men out there that you set the tone for your marriage. You really do.
Coming up, we're going to meet a man who says that he had to leave the U.S. to find the perfect trad wife. Tonight we're talking about kind of a new social media trend, trad wives. Now, look, I've always said different.
I know that I don't think that's part of this clip that you
Yeah,
edited,
I clipped
but
it out.
basically the passport bros phenomenon is because this is an American man response to surveying the feminist surroundings and realizing there's no hope here for future family that I can trust and love, and there's no women here showing me green flags that she's going to support me as a man and not support financially, but be my number one helpmate.
Yes,
Like there's none of
yes.
that. I guess what we're dealing with is the inherent thing that's built into us that God told us from the beginning. There was not a helpmate for Adam. Therefore, he created one from his rib. And so Adam then had exactly what he needed. And the woman was created exactly to be with him as she needed. So it wasn't like both were created defunct and broken, and he just put them together and said, figure it out.
Yeah.
They were created to be together on purpose.
Yeah.
This is why no matter how many feminists want to scream and shout, I don't need a man, I'm just fine. The moment a man comes by that checks their boxes,
Yes.
she changes her tune.
Yes.
This is why, you know, look, I grew up in a little bit different time. I'm a Gen Xer, but when I was in my teens and 20s, there was a joke amongst the men, which was, if you're on top of your game, you'll turn a lesbian. I'm not joking. Like that was what we joked about in the past. And I saw men do it. I saw men do it because the women would be like, oh, you know, I don't like men. And they're like, oh, really? Okay. Anyway, come over and sit down beside me. You're like, you just men, obviously they're being young men and they're being not being godly about it. But like I've seen it happen, right? Because it is built into us, not for oppression, but for connection and love and mutual respect and understanding to build and grow husband and wife one to another. And so this is all of this is kicking against the goats. Yeah. All of this is a willful defiance, which is called madness. Yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier about Deuteronomy 27, the curses of the law. You walk around with madness of mind, right? You're not making logical decisions. You're going against what's obviously in nature. This is what Paul talks about in Romans chapter 1. Yep. Right? They gave over their natural relations for being inflamed with lust for one another, male and male, female and female. So like this is what we're dealing with is people that are not addressing their hurts, not addressing their fear. And there's an ideology that swoops in and says, oh, well, you don't have to address all that. Yeah. Here's how you insulate yourself with power. Yes. This is the ring of power. And then therefore they don't have to actually grow as a person and trust God and love people. Right. They can just, this is why most feminists are despicable to be around. Like they have a bad attitude. They don't, there's not any sense of like, they're easily offended. There's not any sense of congeniality. They're argumentative. Yeah, I'll stop there, but there's a lot there.
For different folks, you got to find something that works for you. And there are some things that are happening in our society now that I'll tell you are all around unhealthy. There are some trends of much more cohabitation now where people aren't married, and the statistics don't lie in this regard. If you have non-biological relatives involved, there's high risk of abuse for the children. If you have a bio mom living with a man, the risk of abuse of small children in the home is 33 times normal. Fatal assaults by stepfathers are 100 times greater than they are by biological fathers.
Do you think that lady that was just looking at him suffered any of these statistics?
I don't know.
We don't hear the rest of the story, how her mom might have started dating again.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
I don't know.
You got 1.5, 2 times a child of divorce will engage in risky sex behavior. So if you have children that go through some of these experiences in life, you have to control those you can, because children that grow up in a single parent home can absolutely thrive. They can absolutely do well in school. They can absolutely learn all the things they need to do to have a wonderful life, but you just need to be aware there are some risk involved. You're a perfect example. You've been through some of these things, and it clearly changes who you are, but you have to adapt to it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it depends on how you do your parenting. For me, you know, my kids are everything. I would say they come before my husband. They are the number one reason that I am successful. They're the number one reason that I'm okay with being in a male-dominated industry, because I want to show my daughter especially that it's very, very important. I mean, as women, we fought for so many years to seek equality and to be in a workforce where you're even looked at the same way as a man. So, you know,
in the same way that
I don't want to be looked at the same way as a man. I want to be looked at as a woman. For all the unique things that I, as a woman, bring to the world that a man cannot. And this is what feminism has blurred. It's that this idea that when women and men should be treated the same in all these aspects. Obviously, I think women and men should have the same like civil rights. But in terms of this mentality that women think they need to have the same status as men, like in a workforce somewhere, and that's what gives them some kind of equality. Meanwhile, you have them coming on shows like this to put down the whole concept of a woman who wants to be fully embodying her
Right.
feminine role. So it's just really sad. And then, of course, her saying that her children come before her husband is toxic. That's not a healthy mindset.
Yeah.
Our spouses in general, I believe our spouses should come first, and we're the united foundation that our children grow upon. So we're going to be teaching Levi, hey buddy, the adults are talking. If you
Yeah.
need something, wait for a moment, and then we're not going to
Or-
be doing this.
I know that your mother said no.
Yeah.
If you try to manipulate me again and pit us
Yes.
against each other, there's going to be discipline
Yeah.
involved. But
Or-
we make decisions together, and those decisions benefit you because we love you.
Yeah.
So we're not going to show Levi that we're constantly in disunity,
Right.
right? That would be messed up. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to show Levi, I'm going to take your side because your mother is a bad person or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's building distrust.
Mhm.
And that's actually a form of alienation, but it's building
Yeah.
distrust in one of the parents through the children. That's a horrible way to raise your child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while I respect the whole trad wife tradition, and as a product of somebody that was brought up by a very strong woman, I feel like, the trad wife tradition is one thing, but it doesn't compete with being an independent woman. We've worked so hard to acquire that title, and it is the way that
The trad wife is still independent, right? Like she can still do anything she wants. She can do anything she wants within the law, within the culture. Her husband, is her husband telling her? He just says, I appreciate what this life direction she's taken, but he never said, I asked her to be like this.
No, and she chose that was the life that she wanted before they met. So they already had some aligned values. So yeah, this whole, saying that I respect this thing while also saying we competed, it doesn't compete with, being a strong and independent woman in the workforce. It's this mindset of competition, it's such a toxic mindset. You don't have to compete with the trad wife, look, if you're in a country where if you want to be the CEO of a company and have your husband work as a subordinate underneath you, clearly you can do it. So why be worried about a woman who wants to raise her daughters with different values than you're raising your daughters with? It's
those ancient Greek gods like Liberty and Columbia and Athena.
those dudes.
That's what let me get to my joke. Don't steal my joke.
Oh, sorry. we think too much.
We
alike,
do.
baby.
We do. So they promoted in their pagan cultures the idea of sexual fertility,
Mhm.
the concept of sexual libertine freedom.
Yeah.
This is what they practiced at the temples of Zeus and Baal, both with female and male prostitutes. And then they also promoted equality within the godhead. Like the goddess Athena was a part of a triad with Juno and Jupiter
Yeah.
in the Roman Trinity. And so she was elevated in egalitarian style as a
Okay.
goddess to be respected by all people, just like Juno and Jupiter,
Yeah.
Jupiter being Zeus. And so it's fascinating that this type of similar mindset, and yes, meanwhile, it's just men in drag,
Yeah.
right? Athena's just a dude in drag.
Yeah.
It's like the Statue of Liberty, right? It's Columbia. This is why I said one of the previous videos that we did, I said feminism is just a dude in a dress.
Yeah.
Like that is literally
Yeah.
what it was. You reduce it all down, it's a dude in a dress. That's why she said, I want to be respected like a man.
Yeah.
And the crazier part is now we're seeing the more just like insanity, like the true curse of the law, the true madness infused into this argument of feminism and freedom into the LGBTQ rainbow mafia
Yeah.
concept of, oh, well, now because I'm raising an independent child, if she wants to cut off her parts
Yeah.
and sterilize herself chemically,
Mhm.
then that's to be applauded
I need to
because
empower
you're so courageous and
him.
brave.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, God says you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind and
Yeah.
you're hurting yourself. You're causing yourself to die. You're killing yourselves to the point where, you got like the extreme part of it that we see fulfilled in the days of Isaiah that was prophesied is in Leviticus, is that you're going to start eating each other.
Yeah.
Like that's how far it's going to go.
Mhm.
You're going to go all the way down to you start eating each other
Yeah.
while you're being taken over by your enemies, by the way. And a nation outside of you that's not even as bad as you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we sit there and we look and we go, oh, that's Babylon, that's Assyria, that's Egypt. Israel was worse than them at times. This is what led to the curses of the law that got them invaded.
Yeah.
And then when Babylon finally reached that point of degradation, they were
Yeah.
invaded
Their
and
comeuppance
dispersed.
came as well.
God's law applies to everybody. So the point is, it's just absolute madness. And I think this is one of the curses of the law that we are witnessing. These are just various levels of it.
Yeah.
But it's heartbreaking because
The-
the opening statement of Dr. Phil is, what are we going to do to get this spiraling, destruction of the American family? I'm like, repent,
Yeah.
turn back to God's
Yeah.
ways, obey the incredible wisdom that came down from above, and obey that wisdom. And then you're going to move away from this ideology and this philosophy of the ancient gods and goddesses, which led to nothing but destruction and cannibalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Learn to fear the Lord and you'll never fear anything else again. So that's really the key.
We raise our children. For me, I want to leave behind a legacy that my daughter sees and she's very proud of. I want her to be independent. I want her to know that, unfortunately, in life, things do happen. Parents do die. You do get divorced. It's not always rose-colored glasses. It's not. And I believe you're young. You're 27, right? And
One thing I want to say about a lot of feminists, they talk about this backup plan and needing to be prepared just in case you get divorced, but then let their fiance ask them to sign a prenup.
Right.
And there's a whole episode of Dr. Phil actually where the woman is refusing to sign a prenup and the fiance's his father's dying words to him were, please have her sign a prenup before you get married. And she called off the wedding completely. So just for anyone out there who thinks, prenups are some kind of affront, I hope you're not also saying, make sure you have a backup plan.
the way that I was at 20.
Sorry.
So, that could be a whole nother show, but like
Yeah.
in a society where the man is disadvantaged by the legal system,
Mhm.
the prenup becomes valuable.
Yes.
But in
yeah.
a biblical society, there would be no reason for a prenup.
Well, here's my thing. And I wanted to make a post about this. I'm thinking about studying it out. I think, that was
An early form.
an early form of a prenup where there was some sort of backup plan in place should divorce happen. And yes, if we were a more biblically based society, not a trad society, if we were a biblically based society, women who end up as widows or have their husbands abandon them, they went back to their father's households.
Mhm.
And
And it was unrighteousness, as Jesus pointed out, to put away her wife, but not give her a certificate of
Yes.
divorce. Matthew
Yeah.
5, Matthew 19.
these safety nets were in place by God's word also for the orphans and the widows. And I think that women who were abandoned by their husbands were probably in that category of widows, not technically, but financially speaking. They needed provision as well. So this is a part of society that I am sad has even affected my family, because I think if something were to ever happen to Sean, I don't know that my dad would let me come live with him, because he is so programmed that you grow up, you become an adult, you get your own place, and you don't move back in with your parents. Even he, who's been Christian his whole life, is detached from that Old Testament, quote unquote, principle of your father's authority and household transfers back to him if your husband dies or leaves you. Like even my dad is divorced from that mindset. So did you have?
Well, I was just
something?
going to say it's also a part of this detached mindset of unrighteousness, which is in our culture is a little bit different than the ancient days, where Christ is reprimanding woe to the scribes and Pharisees and teachers of the law for their liars, whitewashed tombs, all this kind of stuff. They set aside the law for the sake of their tradition. They were allowing the men in that culture to put away their wives and not take care of them.
Mhm.
And just as a pure and undefiled religion is taking care of the widows, orphans, keep yourself unpolluted from the world, the Father's heart is for the widows and the orphans. His ministers were supposed to have his heart.
Yeah.
His priests at his temple were supposed to have his heart.
Yep.
So they could share the excess resources from the tithes and the offerings to the widows and the orphans and the poor, which would have been a wife put away without a divorce certificate.
Yeah.
So this is where, and also hopefully you would counsel the man in the sin of abandoning his family.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, then you're not a good shepherd.
Yeah.
You're not a priest. You're not someone that, that's a whole nother convo, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a part of this idea, like it all blends into the fear of the feminist.
Yes.
Which is, I want to take half, no matter if I work for it or not.
Mhm.
I want to I want to marry into a situation. It's like some weird ancient, duchess is being given to a prince, knowing that their kingdoms will meld together.
Yeah.
Their wealth and resources will meld
Yeah.
together, and then she will have access to part of his kingdom as well. Whereas these women who realize they may not have a father to go back to, they may not have any money saved up already because they've been out partying in their early 20s and not building a family, and they don't know how to maintain a relationship with a good man.
Yeah.
Because they despise good men because they've been taught the opposite values.
Yeah.
So in the back of their mind, there's nothing but fear of, well, I need to secure something for myself.
Yeah.
Because I can't trust a relationship to pan out, and I have nothing else to fall back on. So therefore, I need to legally, they need to be that what's it called, the gold digger. They fall into the gold digging mentality. Many of them will never give it that label.
Yeah.
But that's the fear forces them into that, because there are legitimate problems with men as well.
Yes.
There are legitimate problems with the men as well. Okay. Of what we just mentioned, men that are willing to abandon families, men that are willing to divorce for the wrong reasons, men that are willing to never get married.
Yeah.
This concept, I know, and this is really kind of seems to be a really rough thing in the Torah crowd.
Yeah.
Where they'll just be like, oh, we don't need no government document. And then you're like, so neither one of you have protection now if things go wrong.
Yeah.
Now it's just going to get super messy, even messier than normal.
Yeah, I think men in the Torah crowd are super underestimating how little rights they can end up having over their children in this country if they're not legally married. Okay. I know it's a whole, debate that people want to have about the state being involved in your marriage, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? The state will be involved in your life. Whether you get whether you're divorcing from some paper you and your wife wrote to each other, or it's a legal marriage, and it's going to be a lot worse for you typically if you're not legally married. So, there's a lot of men that Sean and I have watched behind the scenes lose all access to their children because they thought, I don't need some license from Babylon to marry my wife. No, you don't technically. But if you and your wife split up, you are going to need some legal protection from the country that you're a citizen of. So that's something that, I really want the men to hear that warning out there, because this is a reality these days. Like, you can lose total access to your children if you marry the wrong woman, you knock up the wrong lady, and you guys aren't legally married. The state's going to be a lot harder to get to work in your favor like that.
'27 is completely different how I was when I was 30 or how I am now. Everything changes. Things do change. We evolve. And with that being said, I feel it's really important, and I continuously instill in my daughter, even after her going through a divorce and me being remarried and living in a household where I was brought up by a single parent, it is very, very important that a young child, because of society and all the social media and all the things that they see, it's super important that we let our children form their own identity before having that relationship where they are relying upon a man. And that's okay, that's fine. But I think acquiring their own identity is superior before anything else.
No doubt.
See, that's the vague feminist language that is they never define, what does that mean, find your own identity? Because we used to raise women and men with the expectation that a big chunk of your identity comes from growing up and getting married and starting a family and being husbands and wives and mothers and fathers. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I even try to think back to my own thought process when I was still a brainwashed feminazi, and I never had the critical thinking skills to stop myself in that thought process and think, what do I even mean by that? What do I mean go find out who I am before I commit to a man? Like, because I never did find out who I was actually until I met Jesus and realized, oh, my identity is rooted in my relationship with God. And so many of these people are lacking that. Then of course you're ending up with this vague language that there's no real definition given to you. And really it just ends up being, you find yourself by, getting drunk and being, fornicating through your 20s.
Final thoughts after the break. We're back and we're talking about a trad wife movement. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? That's for you to decide.
I can't.
Robin and I have been together for 50.
Just to tag on to what you were saying, the end result is all this boils down and it is reduced down to the simple behavior that is the consistent behavior we've all witnessed in the past 50 years. From 18 to 30, people just party and fornicate.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to being in the mindset to start building a life.
Right.
And valuing things that will last.
Yeah.
As far as relationships and saving money and that kind of stuff. And this is where the university concept really sells this hard, super hard.
Oh yeah.
They want you to come in there so that you can be highly educated, but the life that it brings with it is nothing but a concept of no restraints, no accountability, party and fornicate.
Yeah.
And this is just an ancient extension of the Babylonian way, which was they were, even to the day before the marriage with the bachelorette parties.
Yeah.
Right. This concept of, like, we see this, what is it? The Testament of Judah. We see this. It's the Testament of Judah, I believe, that it talks about how in Canaan, in Shechem, it was like a cultural thing that before a woman got married, for 7 days, she had to play the harlot before she got married.
Yeah.
Like, that was in their culture.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't get married yet. You haven't played the harlot yet with random men.
Yeah.
For 7 days. And then you think that's going to be the husband's going to be happy with that afterwards?
Yeah, that is not a solid foundation for your marriage.
And this, of course, is the same culture whom Jubilee tells us Jacob discovered that they had a history of stealing wives.
Right.
The same. So there was no respect
Yeah.
for this concept of marriage
Yeah.
on either side of the marriage contract in Babylon.
Yeah.
Right. In the ways of the world, the ways of the nations who are despicable are going to be spit out of the land. So this is where we're seeing this same Babylonian deceptions of this behavior in various ways implemented into the culture of young people to think, don't get married yet. You're way too young.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times you've heard people say, oh,
All the time.
you married young.
Even people in this trad wife conservative crowd will say, oh, that's so young. No, you're just getting, it's way too young. But forgetting that, when they talk about hearkening back to a time when marriages last, it's like, do you know how old your grandparents were when they were getting married? Do you know how old your great grandparents were when they were getting married?
Yep.
Like, are we all forgetting, that a lot of people were getting married in their teens?
My grandparents were 19 and 17 when they got married.
Yeah, you know. So, and those are some of the longest lasting marriages. Now, the feminists will want to pop up and say, well, that's because they lived in a time when the woman couldn't leave, blah, 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 blah. That may be part of it. But again, that's just more of an example that social shame is actually something that can be beneficial for a society on a large mass scale, because look what happens when even the marriages that aren't all rainbows and roses and chocolate strawberries, even marriages that aren't that, when we see the breakdown of marriage across the board in society, look at what has happened. Look what is going on with our youth and even people our age are struggling with this. So yeah, it's definitely, it's something that I think people aren't really thinking through when they say a lot of these things. These are a lot of tropes they parrot.
50, been married for 47. That's right?
That's right.
Okay. Just checking. And people ask me, what's the formula for success in a relationship? And there's a lot of ways to answer that question, a lot of ways to define it. But one way that I think applies to everybody, if you take all the value systems out of it and look at it practically, the formula for success in a relationship is a function of how well it meets the needs of the two people involved. If one person is getting their needs met 85% and the other one's getting their needs met 15%, one person's going to be having a great time and the other one's going to be really frustrated. So you got to really look and say, not just how's this working for me, but how's it working for them? And that means that it's a negotiation, and the negotiation never ends because you change across time. And that means you have two jobs. Job number one is you have to teach the other person what your needs are, and you have to work real hard to discover the needs of your partner. And man, if you look at your partner and they don't have a smile on their face, you might want to think about changing what you're doing. And across time, that works really well. This is not a 50-50 deal. It's a 100-100. Everybody has to work towards this. Marriage isn't
I can get
for
on board with
everybody.
that.
I think that if we really work at our family, whether it's our nuclear family or we get married and it's a family, everybody has to realize we got to make an effort at this. It doesn't just happen. And we can't get distracted by everything going on around us. And I think the family is the backbone of America. And I think we really have to focus on that. I don't care what's happening on the internet or what this trend or that trend is. Family is backbone of America, and we got to focus on that. All right, we're at.
All right.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like he tried to provide some, seemingly, decent advice at the end. Very generalized, but decent. We tried to provide the commentary on the underlying factors that are so anti-biblical that put these women in these positions here. We didn't hear a lot from Allie Beth Stuckey.
Yes, and that was one thing. I was like, Allie should be hopping in here to agree with Esty about trusting God. That whole little confrontation that happened there for a moment. Allie, I don't know if maybe she said something that was edited out, but what's put up as the episode is she's silent in that moment. I'm like, you're the other Christian on the panel. Like, why aren't you chiming in and saying, adding that balance to it? This is the balance Sean and I are talking about with these conversations that are going around. And very rarely do we get just a basic Christian perspective to balance things out, let alone a Torah-based Christian perspective to balance things out. And that was something that kind of disappointed me. I'm like, Allie didn't say anything about trusting God. And, yes, anybody's husband could pass away, but we trust God through all that.
I mean, this is where, unfortunately, the red pill guys on the internet would say that's because most conservative Christian women are just feminists.
Yeah, I do.
They just don't realize how much they're feminists.
Yes, and I didn't want to say this, but I will.
What is going on with my camera? It keeps going out of focus. It is weird. Sorry.
When she was talking about how ultimately her husband is the authority and he gets the final say, I kind of was like, I wonder if her husband ever wanted her to quit doing her podcast, if that would be true.
Oh, Allie Beth?
Yeah, if her husband ever decided there's some sort of major life change that needs to happen and they need to wrap up her show, like, I wonder if he really would be the final authority, and that is something a lot of the red pill guys point out about a lot of these Christian conservative ladies commentating, that, hey, they're like, you're not really in line with your own ideology, but I think they have their own. They're not, they call themselves conservative Christians, but they don't seem to be fully 100% biblically based, You
mean you mean the Trinitarian podcaster? You talking about that?
Yeah, there was I thought there was a whole video I was going to send you from her where she was going off on the Trinity. I was going to see if you wanted to react to it, but I forgot. So I don't know where it is now, but
Yeah.
yeah. Sean and I were talking today about, some of you may have seen my video I did on my personal channel responding to a comment from someone that was upset about us doing these reaction videos. Basically, this is all just secular nonsense. It's worldly topics that people want to be away from. They don't want this stuff in their lives. They want solid biblical teaching, and they want Torah teachings. And Sean and I were like, I think people in our Torah crowd have gotten a wrong idea of what it looks like to be studying and learning about the scriptures and discipling in the word, because it's not all PowerPoints and breaking down scripture line by line. You also need practical application of the Torah and the commandments in your life. And having these conversations are a fantastic way to bring that about and to bring that discipleship up to the surface for people, to talk about real life issues that are really affecting us and absolutely going to be affecting our children, that the Bible doesn't explicitly address for us. The Bible doesn't tell us how to train, to raise our boys to look for godly wives in a country where so many women are being turned in the opposite direction. Like there's no course, there's no chapter in scripture breaking that down for us. So what do? We need to get together and talk about it, right? We need some sort of discipleship, especially in this area of marriages and families, guys, because the red pill stuff is creeping into the Torah crowd, where I'm watching Torah men start to think that all women are WHOREs. They're all gold diggers. There's no reason to get married. Or if you are married, your wife is not allowed to disagree with you. There are men in the Torah crowd who think they can push polygamy onto their wives and say, if you don't agree with polygamy, I'm divorcing you. Like there was already a toxic mindset. All right. There's been a toxic mindset in Christianity. We all know why cults grow, where they come from. But in the Torah community, we are highly susceptible. I believe we're more susceptible to this cult-like mentality in the Torah community because we all care about being clean and being set apart. But we have a tendency to take that to a crazy extreme where we're literally starting communes and cults. And people are, husbands are leaving their wives to go live with a cult and serve the cult, and if the wife doesn't agree to go live with the cult, well, I have grounds to divorce her now. There was a man who was sharing about how his wife broke their marriage covenant because she called the police on him when he got violent and smashed a chair and punched holes in the walls. So it's important. I really feel like, if there aren't some Torah teachers out there that are going to talk about these particular topics, we're just going to be watching marriages in the Torah crowd just tank. And we're going to be watching our children being raised in the Torah crowd, have no spouses and no good, godly, wives and husbands to go meet and marry and start families with. So, I just want to encourage people who may be confused as to why Sean and I are like suddenly talking about this,
So tell me, I'm sorry. Just waiting for you to.
Sorry. We've just come to a place in our walk where we feel God has equipped us to talk about these things. And we think that it's important to talk about them as a community, and it is relevant in our walks and our lives as believers. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. The biggest thing that we've noticed that's an issue, like if it's not apples to apples comparison, but if we're talking about, as we gave our critique on feminism today, a similar critique would be on the Torah crowd that decides that they need to separate from all society and get away from everything and live like in a commune or like a hermit, and think that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to be okay. You still are in the land of dispersion. You're still in the land of your enemies. Yahweh gave the example in Jeremiah for the exiles to pray for the country, seek the welfare of the country that they're in. That doesn't mean they get to hole up and isolate somewhere in Ecbatana or somewhere in other cities in Babylon and never interact with any other people within the kingdom of Babylon. We see if that was the case, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would not have accepted the positions of governor over 3 of the 127 different provinces in Babylon that they were bestowed upon them. after they, were saved miraculously and gained the favor of Nebuchadnezzar, they would have not accepted that. They're governors. They're governors over a province of Babylon. Righteous, Torah-following men then had to be a governor, which means they have to get in the dirt. They have to get in the nitty-gritty, the grime with the people of Babylon to govern affairs. So same thing that we see Daniel doing, right?
Yeah.
So Daniel is a part of the generation of whom went into slavery, exile into Babylon, in which Jeremiah the prophet, contemporary of Daniel, Yahweh tells them all, pray for the welfare of the nation that you're being exiled into. We're currently, or at least the majority of you are probably watching from the United States, and this is modern Egypt. We're in modern Egypt, guys. We're in a very corrupt society full of bad leaders with financial corruption everywhere. And Torah does not equal isolating from the culture and thinking that you're doing. How are you going to shine your light on a hill?
Yeah.
Like Christ said, how are you going to go and eat with the sinners and tax collectors? How are you going to go actually make disciples of all nations? If you're isolating yourself and thinking, I need to create a commune and just be with the people that agree with my specific Torah doctrine. You're not doing it. You're not doing Torah. If someone has told you a bad teaching and thinks that that's what doing Torah is, that's not the biblical precedent for doing Torah. You just become a Jonah.
Yeah.
The Jonah that got chastised and killed because he refused to do what God said, which is to engage with the pagans.
Yeah, who he thought weren't worth it. He thought it wasn't worth his effort. He looked at the world and thought, screw them. They're not going to repent. They're not worth my time and effort.
Yeah. So this is a huge problem in the Torah community of thinking, oh, because you've come to this understanding that the fullness of God's instructions apply to you, that now you're going to keep that for yourself and not integrate in society with it and share it to others. And this is a problem. This is a lack of a fullness of teaching from Torah teachers. And this is why we've never been like that.
Yeah.
And we get flagged for it, right? And we discourage people from going off and creating your own communes to where you have certain families come move on with you, or you have your own little private, gated community where you build 10 houses and you all subsist. And like you're just becoming Amish at that point. You're just becoming a new brand of Amish, and you're deciding to exclude yourself from society as opposed to engaging and being the lights that people need to see and hear to know why they should follow Torah and repent as well. So we're all disciples. We have the command from our master, who is Yeshua of Nazareth, to go and make disciples of the nations. That is our command to all of us. To all of us. This is what we're taught. So it breaks my heart to see feminism being the ways of Babylon create a weird sense of isolation based on fear within women.
Right.
But then we see people come into the truth of God's fullness of his wisdom and instruction. And then out of fear of the culture around them, they isolate themselves and they keep to themselves what God has said to go and share.
Yeah.
And this is the part where, again, it's going to be the same outcome. You might enjoy a couple decades right now of a private Torah community.
Yeah.
But when the culture around you falls because they've gone into the depravity of the curses of Deuteronomy 27, another nation invades, you're not going to be able to do Torah in your own community. You're going to be back in a stronger, stricter, more oppressive version of exile. Right now, guys, we got it good in the United States.
Yeah.
Like for as much as we have, as far as the examples of other nations, as a people who can have the freedom to go and pursue your own walk with God, like we have it really, really good. This is an opportunity to take that goodness and share with people so they can have it really, really good, not to hold it in for ourselves. That is, I'm thinking of one of the parables that Christ talked about, where the guy, it's the talents. It's Matthew 25.
Yeah.
He buried his talents in the ground.
Yeah.
He didn't make anything. He didn't make any production out of it. And he's chastised by the master for, oh, you had some worth. You had something of worth And instead of at least giving it to the banks, you can grow it. Or instead of turning it into, 30, 60, 100 fold, you buried it in the ground. And he calls them wicked servants. And this is where it breaks my heart because we do teach Torah. We are put into the Torah community as a stereotype.
Yeah.
And we've always wanted to engage with the culture. That's why I have mainstream pastors, PhDs, and professors, and other people on my show all the time to have discussions.
And you were talking with atheists at the beginning of your channel. You were having atheists on to talk with them as well.
Yeah.
So people really seem to forget when Jesus said we're in the world, but not of it. So there is a level of denial that we have to stop living in about being in the world. We don't have to be of the world, but we're still in it. We're here. Like do we love our neighbors or not? Do we love them enough to engage in the conversations that they're having or not? Because those conversations will affect our children, guys. It's whether you raise them on a little commune somewhere or out in the suburbs and they go to public school, they are going to be influenced by these demonic ideologies. And so it's worth it to come together as a community and start talking about them and tackling them and figuring out how to explain these things to our children from the biblical perspective so that they're not being swayed one way or the other in the debate. So, I want people to remember that there are more ways to study and disciple than just a line by line reading of scripture. And if that's what you prefer, we have hundreds of videos on the channel where Sean has been doing that for years, and Sean is continuing to do that. And Ashley asked in the comments, I wonder what happened to the 42 series. And for the 10 millionth time, Sean has explained for a couple of years that the 42 series is not the same as his other teachings where he breaks down a passage of scripture line by line and connects to all these things. 42 series is branching out into the world, into worldly topics and demonic symbolism and things like that. And it is a series that is very much guided by God, giving Sean, I don't want to say a revelation, but giving him a little drop of knowledge to go follow and start following a rabbit trail. And that's what creates the 42 series, each episode that you see. Sean, I don't know if you guys have heard of writer's block. Sean had a 42 block for a while because I have been the number one fan club girl saying every month, when's the next 42 come out? And it drives him nuts. But it's because I like the series too. I like watching it too. But I've been here firsthand. He's not just putting it aside because he doesn't care about it. He really was waiting for the breakthrough to come from the Father to show him the next direction he needed to go in this next episode. And guess what? It happened. And that he's been working on that episode as you guys are typing in the chat saying, what happened to 42? I want 42. It's happening. So if you guys want more 42 series, please pray for Sean to get the crumbs that he needs to follow for each episode of that. Okay. So he's still doing all of that stuff.
At this point, it's this next installment. It may be like, it's going to be big. It may be almost 6 hours. It may be like
I
a
like
big,
the sound of
big
that.
video.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Because there's just so many things that have to be talked about to give you a well-rounded concept of, this idea.
Yeah.
And so
here's one thing.
It's a big video. It's a lot of research that goes into this.
Here's one thing I want to challenge people to think about. Why, if you are someone who's been kind of bothered by us doing reactions to secular things, quote unquote, worldly topics, why are you comfortable with 3 hours of demonic symbolism and explaining things of the demonic and things of the wicked world and true evil? Why do you crave that kind of infotainment over this, where we're talking about demonic ideologies, but we're still talking about the Bible. We're talking about how to walk these things out in this world.
How to give yourself the tools to know what you're looking at in society.
Yeah.
So that you can teach that to your children.
Yeah.
So they're not broadsided by this society.
Right.
That brings them in and traps them in
Mm-hmm.
vices and then puts them into relationships that are nothing but destructive.
Yes. Yeah.
So that then there's misery till they're 40, 50 years old.
Yeah. So if you can see the value in a whole series that's breaking down the ways of the enemy and all his wicked, ritualistic approaches, if that, if you consider that to be valuable teaching, that's not even secular. That's just straight up demonic stuff Sean is getting into with those series. Why is that valuable for your walk? But this over here talking about marriage and family and relationships, how is that? Why is that not relevant to the walk of a believer? You don't have to answer the question. I'm challenging you to ask yourself. If you're someone who feels like, man, Sean should just be spending his time on 42 and going line by line through the scriptures. Well, ask yourself, why do you like so much the demonic symbolism stuff? Why are you so intrigued by that stuff? Just something to think about. Either way, this is direction that God is taking Sean and I in our marriage. And just so that you guys know, this is something that's very edifying for us as a couple. I personally have felt that we have been growing closer through doing these shows together. So it's not just about an algorithm or reacting to secular stuff. Like, this is about marriage and families and our children, guys. It's not really about the content and the people in the videos that we're watching. It's about the demonic messaging behind it and how that stuff is creeping into the Torah crowd. And Sean and I want to address it and help people in their marriages and have stronger marriages and stronger families. So if it's a problem that we do that by reacting to content like this, I'm sorry. There's plenty of other stuff to watch on the channel. So
I don't see any questions in the live chat. Yeah, I just know that we're never going to affect we have this incredibly large harvest of warm, faithful bodies in the mainstream church that just need a little bit of extra information to know why they should keep the fullness of the commandments. And instead, what we mostly see in the Torah crowd is people are demonizing those who are still in mainstream churches and don't consider them brothers in the faith.
Yeah.
And sometimes they've had a bad experience. They were kicked out of a church because they started asking about the Sabbath or about eating clean or something like that. And people got weird with them, got sneering with them or whatever. But that's just an opportunity for you to obey Torah.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity for you to forgive, to walk in love, this is your moment to shine.
Bless those who curse you.
Yeah.
And treat others the way you want to be treated. So if you didn't like being ostracized from a community because you thought differently, then why are you doing that to other people? It's a balance, guys, and it's something that only really comes with maturity, but humility in the maturity. You have to be willing to see where you've been wrong and you've had a wrong, unbiblical approach towards people. And that absolutely can be brought up as a mirror as you're coming into this Torah walk and you start to separate yourself from certain things and certain places and certain people, and you start to adopt an attitude that you see other people in the Torah crowd exhibiting, thinking that that's the attitude you're supposed to have. You got to come to a place of humility where you realize, oh gosh, just because so many people in this community are acting this way doesn't mean I should be acting this way. Yeah. I recently did a post about this really skinny, demonic looking lady playing Jesus in a play, and how the Christian,
the shaved head.
Cynthia something. The Christian conservative world went crazy about this, and they were so offended. And I posted to remind people, hey, we are supposed to rejoice when we're mocked. We're not supposed to get offended by it. And it's hard because we love Jesus so much. It hurts to see him mocked. It really does. Yeah. But at the same time, these people don't see the irony in the fact that they prove him right every time they do it. They literally are fulfilling prophecy that every time they do it, they prove. And they show that Satan is just having the world's longest temper tantrum and the world's longest cope in how all he can do is mock Christ. That's all he can do, because he knows his fate in the end. So, I keep trying to remind people, I think we are getting way too caught up in these attitudes of offense and separation and division, and you're unclean and I'm clean, and that means I'm here and you're there. Like we've got totally lost in that. And, who is out there reaching the lost? Who's out there lovingly showing an example to mainstream Christians without shoving anything down their throats or condemning them for not being where we are on the path? Like, who's out there doing that and having that kind of influence on people? So, I just want to encourage people that this is how Sean and I have always taught the word, and we're just finding another dynamic way to teach the word.
Yeah, Tiago, the dogs' names are Bella and Resner. Bella's the black and white one, black and silver, and then Resner's the brown. Elo is asking something we already addressed earlier. Maybe he just got here. He says, the thing is people that live as people of the way have a terrible time finding prospect for marriage. So what do we say about that? This is why we're addressing the culture.
Yeah.
This is why we're, what do we say about that? For one, is if not sure if you're talking about yourself, but if there's a young man out there that's seeking a prospect for marriage in a wicked and adulterous generation, you've got to lean on Christ. You have to pray. You have to ask the Father to create a wife for you as you ask him to make yourself into a good husband that's prepared for that wife. And so that's the first and foremost thing, that prayer, right? Pray for the woman before you may not even know her yet, right? Pray for the woman, but then also pray for yourself to be ready when you meet that woman. And then secondly, you're not going to meet that woman if you're in a Torah commune, hold away from everybody, waiting for someone's daughter to grow up.
Yeah.
Like that's no. You just as God brought all of us out of bad teachings into the fullness of God's instructions and wisdom, and we realize the applicability and the benefit to our discipleship because of that, he's bringing other people out in the same way. He's not done, guys. He's not done with this.
Yeah.
We've said this for a long time. We believe that we're in the fulfillment of Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 1 and 2, scattered everywhere under the heaven, that his people are calling to mind. And yes, that does mean mainstream church Christians are his people. They are his people.
Yes.
But they've been given a bad doctrine. They're stuck in that rut, but then they call to mind his ways, his commandments. And this is what's happening all over the place, all over the world. I still believe Jubilee 623 is a wonderful prophecy about the days we're living in. People will become repentant and start to learn the law again. Excuse me.
Yeah. I want to say that that's part of why Sean and I are trying to have these conversations, because this is also something we have to consider for our children in a world where it's very hard to find a spouse. Sean and I have joked about having some sort of arranged marriage for Levi with the people we know through our tour community online, because, his prospects in the world are looking real grim. So, but that means we also need to be addressing that some of these problems are creeping into the Torah crowd, and they are affecting marriages in our community and families in our community, whether people want to admit it or not. So I would just encourage people that, that's part of the reason we're doing this is also for our children, in the future.
Emmanuel, to answer your question, it's about the level of change that needs to take place. So you're never going to, even when I met her and I feel like she's perfect for me, when we first met, we were not the same people.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot since then, right? I've had to refine myself greatly. She's refined herself. She's not the same person when I met, but yet she has all the potential and all the qualities. And she had the big general concepts that create a compatibility. But I would not suggest thinking that you can find a woman who is unequally yoked to the point where she does not agree with you on a whole host of important topics.
Yeah,
and that's
if
where
she's not a believer, it's a no-go.
That's should be an obvious. But say you find a believer, but she's just very, very lukewarm and very uninformed. You would definitely have to sit down with her and talk about what you guys think about the faith and try to decide if it's even something that she's willing to grow into a better understanding. And of course, that's assuming that you can explain why your understanding is better.
Yeah.
And if you can't, This is where we need to get back in the oven and bake a little longer, right? Because so that's why I would say I would try. I've dated people in the past who call themselves Christians, but then after time, you realize they were just Christian in name only.
Baby, you married one. Your first wife was literally that girl who said she's a Christian, but she was a kino. She was Christian in name only. She was a cultural Christian.
And so, yeah, I've got firsthand experience that doesn't work out well. Now, I was very young and immature as well.
Yes,
I made my own mistakes.
You know
in
a lot.
first
You know
marriage.
better now, for sure.
But at the same time, we were definitely unequally yoked spiritually, and so I wouldn't try to. I wouldn't take that as a challenge. I wouldn't try to go find a girl that's going to have to change a whole bunch to match what you think she needs to be. I would find a woman who's already on that path that God's already sparked in her heart. This is why I said praying for that opportunity, praying for that type of introduction to that woman. Because remember, we're not like the heavenly matchmaker has more wisdom than you. Like the Father knows who you need, and He's the heavenly matchmaker, right?
Yeah.
He knows who you can bring close to you that will help you.
In your anxiety and your urgency to find the right person, you got to be careful about that, because you can convince yourself, I can convert this person. Let me just stick with this. She's good. She's safe. I'm going to settle here. There's a little bit of spark there that I can maybe work with. That's a big risk that you're taking. You need to at least be someone with someone who's already a believer. I can share with you that after I first became a Christian, I had a boyfriend at that time, and he was not a believer. We were yoked through the band Tool and the Tool group on Facebook, and that was what we had in common and brought us together. And then once I became a Christian, it was like my religion of rock music totally fell away from me, and we really didn't have much in common anymore. But I thought he was a nice guy. I had been through so much with the person I was with before him. I had all this fear around men. He was a very nice, safe guy. And I was like, you know what? Paul says, don't abandon the unbeliever, and even though we're not married, I figured I would move out there and get married to him at some point. And I told myself, with time, maybe I can convert him. And thankfully, God worked through him and did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And he broke up with me because he realized we were unequally yoked. That was the funniest part, is he's like, his reasoning for breaking up with me was because I became a Christian and things really changed for me. And of course, I was heartbroken, but deep down, I knew he was right. And I knew he was doing something that I didn't have the strength or the courage to do. And then lo and behold, a year and a half later, along comes Sean in my life. And I knew the moment Sean and I first spoke through Facebook FaceTime, I had this insane knowing deep within my soul that I was supposed to be this man's wife. I was made to be his wife, was how I felt when we were speaking. And I didn't have any of that programming in me growing up. When Sean came into my life, I was at a point where I had decided I was just going to be single. It was safer. I could protect myself easier. I get a big dog for protection in other forms, but otherwise emotionally, I wanted to be safe from ever being hurt so bad again. And God changed all that. He brought Sean into my life. So I would encourage you, to really pray on it. If you are actually in this relationship with a girl who's not a believer, and you're holding on to some hope, I just really pray on that, because it could be the worst decision you ever make.
Someone else is saying, but what about being around non-believers? It can be difficult because of the way they talk and act. How do we handle this? Well, we're not supposed to be adopting our behavior to the world, clearly, but in order to reach the world, you have to go to them. So this is a part of preparing yourself and growing in your discipleship as your walk with Christ, so that you can look clearly. There's a difference between hanging out with people to the point of trying to be a light to them versus engaging in their sin with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly, if they're enticing you to sin, well, we may have to, not interact with them so much. right? Or set boundaries and see how they react. But it just depends, because I know, like, when I became a believer, I had a lot of friends that thought they didn't really know how to handle it.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to discard me immediately because we've been friends for a while.
Right.
And so then they were like trying to go to church with me to like see what it's all about. You know what I mean? But they hadn't really made the decision that I had. And
Yeah.
so they weren't on the same growth curve, if I could put it like that. Didn't have the same goal in mind for the future. And so there became a noticeable strain in our relationship to where I had to back away from certain things. They then got offended and the friendship dissolved. But ultimately, like, we have to go around and be around people in order for us to be a light to them. That's just simple. You cannot, you cannot always just anticipate God to send somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also I hope you don't think Sean and I are saying you need to, like, we're not saying you need to, like, go out to bars and go to the strip clubs and preach to the ladies there or anything.
Although I've done that.
There may be people called into that kind of ministry, and if you're called into it, go do it. But Sean and I are just talking about this concept that we're seeing grow in the Torah crowd that we think is dangerous, which is the cult mentality of, we all need to be separate from this Babylonian, unclean, unwashed world. So we need to go buy land and just come live here and, be barefoot and let our hair grow into dreadlocks and stay unstained from the world, literally. Like, Sean and I are talking about a very specific kind of isolationism that Torah people are more susceptible to, and we want to warn people, be careful what you hitch your zealousness to, because it's good to have zeal, but it can that zeal can very easily be manipulated and weaponized against you, and you can be more susceptible to being recruited into an actual cult. Here we are, the people that the Trinitarians call the cult leaders, being like, guys, be aware of the cults in our crowd. Because we're not supposed to be isolated like that. Sean and I don't go out to hang at the bars. That's not a place we go hang out. But we also don't live out in the wilderness away from the world, inviting other people to come live with us in this little utopia of a commune so that we're not around the unwashed masses. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So yes, it can be hard to be around unbelievers because of how they speak and act. My sister is one of them. But I've been honest with her. Like, I had to tell her, please don't cuss around our kid. And she respected that. She was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Oh, I totally forgot. I haven't had a toddler in a long time. And it's like, yeah, well, I don't want you talking around him like this around him when he's 18 either. But so, you can be around unbelievers and have boundaries without making them feel condemned. I didn't tell her she was some kind of sinner you can't be around if you're going to speak like that. I asked her kindly, hey, could you please watch your mouth around Levi? And I got a resounding yes. So, as far as how to act around unbelievers when they're making you uncomfortable, I try to be a quiet witness and light that shines. And I can tell you that my sister has been being called by the Lord. We've been watching as he's been softening her heart towards him. And she bought herself a Bible, which was a huge deal. And she called me with questions. And while we were talking about it, she told me it's this peace that she sees Sean and I have, and our dad has this peace, and some of these other Christian friends in her life have this peace. And she can't really put words to it. And she wants that. She sees this peace that we have. We're not condemning her. We're not bashing her over the head with the Bible and telling her, you need to repent, accept Jesus. We're like, hey, I went through my own conversion, so I know it really has to be a move of the Spirit. There's very few people in this world that can be talked into it. And I told her that, yeah, the Bible calls that the peace that surpasses understanding. And she was like, what? There's words for it? I'm like, yes. If you keep praying and inviting the Spirit into your life, as you read the scriptures, you're going to find things that define something for you that you had all your life that you couldn't put words to. And that is one of them. So really, that peace that surpasses understanding is, I believe, one of the most important things we exhibit to the outside world, because so many of them have no peace. And that is truly what we're all searching for.
Hey, Emmanuel, I want to encourage you. It's not going to be rough. As someone that went through many years of not being with someone that was right for me and praying for that person, which never worked out. And then before that, being single for a while and, not being with a person that was right for them and praying for God to bring me someone that was right for me. The toughest thing is just literally trusting God and waiting and trying to wait like that he truly, but when it actually happened, it wasn't rough at all. It was like, you know,
I knew
I was
before
actually,
he did.
I was actually kind of resistant because I was like, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way that I go from being in a relationship to where I'm engaged to somebody and I have a dream. And in the dream, someone grabs my face and says that, the person you're engaged to is cheating on you. And to then going literally months later, here she is. And I just can't stop thinking about her. And I'm trying not to communicate with her, thinking that I'm just having a rebound moment, trying to decide, like, is this just a rebound feeling or am I really feeling this?
No, God was like, she's done cooking. You're ready. Here.
Yeah.
Leave the cheater.
it wasn't rough at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of us don't realize until it happens for us that when God is the one directing that union, it's not going to be rough. It's going to be very easy and very blatant.
And no, Tyler, I'm not going to strip clubs every night. But I used to know some people that actually held a Bible study in the back of a strip club. And this is an extreme scenario, do not recommend. But this is what they did. This was in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the early 2000s. And they held a Bible study in the back room of a strip club to where the girls, when they got off stage, done dancing, went back there and continued to listen to the Bible study until it was their turn to go back on stage again. And they had questions and they were asking for prayer and they were asking questions about the Bible. And the two guys that were doing it, to them, they didn't care that these women were naked. Like God gave them the discipline, if you will, the restraint to not focus on that, if you will. In the same way, in Matthew chapter 8, Mark chapter 5, Jesus, the man who came out from the tombs butt naked, who cut himself crying, formerly wrapped in fetters but break free. But the demon possessed.
I thought you were saying Jesus came out of the tomb butt naked.
No, listen, baby, listen. Jesus encountered a man who came out from the tombs naked. He was unclothed and out of his mind.
Okay.
Right? But Jesus didn't focus on that.
Yeah.
He focused on healing the man for what he needed. And then the man was clothed in his right mind. Right? So those are extreme situations, sure. But the Father will give you the strength to encounter those at the time when that's the time. But yes, I have been in bars before and talked to people about God, and they sobered up really quick. So yeah, there's all kinds of places. I mean, people think a bar is like some special. You can be in a bar atmosphere, going to someone's cookout, and find yourself in the backyard with a bunch of drunk people.
True.
Right? And suddenly you're in a bar, and you're the light that's trying to talk to them about the goodness of God, right? And how He's changed your life, and you know what I'm saying. And then they start to sober and realize, man, this isn't the cookout I thought it was going to be. So I've been in plenty of those moments throughout my life, plenty of them. I remember in college, I went to this apartment because I was interested in this girl. No, that was the wrong one. That was a different story. So this guy I knew invited me over to this apartment, not realizing there was going to be a big party that was happening. So this is freshman year of college. Okay. I go over there and there's like 20 people in this 2-bedroom apartment. And many of them are upperclassmen. Everyone's drunk and having a good time. Right. And I have a phone. Like I had this Motorola phone from like a long time ago, and it was in my pocket. I never forget. I pocket dialed my youth pastor from high school while at the party. And I'm just sitting there on the couch, like watching people, barely talking to anybody. And then when I get up to leave, some of the guys noticed because they knew who I was. Like the guy who invited me, I don't know, I guess that maybe they did this on purpose, but they knew that I was a Christian, that I was, always talking about the Bible kind of guy. And I guess they wanted to invite me over just to some entertainment, but I'm not being entertaining. I'm bored myself. I didn't realize that my youth pastor is listening in my pocket to this party. And anyway, it also hangs up on itself later, and he tells me about it later and all this stuff. But so I'm going to leave, and as I'm walking down the steps to leave, some of these guys come out and they're like, "Hey, can we ask you a question real quick?" And they had kind of like this, mocking bravado. And I was like, "Oh, okay, here it comes. Here it comes. They're going to try to start a fight." And one of the guys asked me, "What do you think about, institutionalized religion?" And I was like, "I don't like it. I don't think it's biblical." He's like, "What?" And that led to a 3-hour conversation to where I'm in the back room with these guys, and they're sober by this time. And we're talking about the Bible, and one of them's tearing up, telling me his story about XYZ, that he, disappointments in his life and how he wants to be closer to Christ and he doesn't know how. And like he's asking me to pray for him. And the guy who invited me to the party is witnessing all this. And he's playing with this like little Nerf football at the time. And he gets so angry, he doesn't know what to do. He throws the Nerf football at me and storms out back into the living room, because we all like migrated back to the back bedroom. It's just a bunch of dudes, and we're all talking about the Bible. And it was the most unexpected moment of, here I am in a situation that I realized, you know what, I didn't know what this was going to be, and I shouldn't be here, so I'm going to leave. But they engaged with me, and it turned into dudes crying as we're talking about the Bible, you know what I'm saying, in a part while everyone else is just partying and drinking out in the living room. And so those things can happen for sure. Had I just have been like, the moment that I opened the door and saw everyone's partying, and it's not just the dude that invited me over to hang out, if I'd have been like, "Oh my gosh, heathens," and turned around and walked away, that never would have happened. That never would have happened. So like, I just want to encourage you, there can be moments where you can be in a worldly situation and God can use you to shine brightly, speak his truth, affect people towards repentance. You just got to be willing to be there and be strong in those moments. So thanks for listening to my college stories.
I didn't even know YouTube allowed you to have that many characters in a comment.
Yeah, that's amazing. It probably doesn't show up. I think it's probably just the studio. Yeah.
No,
Wait,
it's not even.
where did it go?
That's interesting.
It's from Michael Brown.
It's not in my chat either on my phone.
Huh. It's not showing up on YouTube, but I see it in the studio.
Well,
we're grateful to you as well, Michael, that Yahweh brought you a wife. That's weird. That's not. Maybe it'll show up later. Maybe it's just taking time to process. It's weird.
All right, guys. My eyes are starting to hurt from the lights. Like, so, yeah, trad wife. Is it really trad? Are they really traditional? I would say no. I say they're hearkening back to a caricature of traditional wifery from the 1950s, specifically TV. I don't know that all families were living this this kind of fairy tale, honestly. I don't know if that was the widespread practice. I do think it's not a bad answer to feminism, but it's not quite biblical. I don't think it's completely problematic, but I do think there's some harmful messaging in there for people who may not be very experienced in life. So let us know what you guys think, in the comments. Is the trad wife, is that something you're looking for, guys? Are you looking for a trad wife? How do you define this trad wife thing? What do you think a traditional woman and a traditional man? Because that's the other thing that's not mentioned is trad hubbies. What's a trad hubby? What does that really look like? And do we want to go back? Do we want to go back to how marriages were practiced for all of human history? Or do we want an elevation into actual Christ-like love as the foundation of our marriages? Because I think a lot of people are forgetting that was not a foundation of marriages for a very, very long time. Women, we read about McCall. McCall didn't get much of a choice And I personally don't think it was fair what she had to go through as a wife. It wasn't cool. And that's traditional marriage.
But at the same time, she was still expected to have a positive attitude towards her husband and respect him.
Yeah. And that's hard. That is really hard.
Yeah.
When your husband, did you some of those ways.
Well, her father did her dirty first.
Yes.
By taking her from David and
Yes.
giving her to another man.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, he decided
David did another
to
bad.
assert his authority over that, and he ended up with a miserable wife.
Yeah.
So was that really beneficial to either of them? Do we want husbands who consider their wives' feelings and consider if their wives are happy or not in their marriages? We don't need this whole toxic happy wife, happy life. Your whole job as a husband is to make your wife happy. No, that's not the purpose of marriage. But should you care if your wife is happy or not? Yeah. And I think if you don't care, I'm questioning if you've got real Christ-like love for her, because Christ is compassionate. Women are the weaker vessel, that's just a reality. And are you treating her tenderly as the weaker vessel? Or are you treating her like she needs to just shut up and listen to you because you get the right to throw that verse in her face that says, submit, woman, Like, do we want old style of marriage, or do we want something totally new that the world has not revolutionized yet, where it's true men actually loving their wives like Christ loves the church, and women actually submitting under that form of leadership? What do you guys think? Let us know. Give the video a like and share with secular friends, share with mainstream Christian friends. This is content that is less offensive to them in terms of, hitting on pet doctrines, like this is pretty across the board, a universal conversation for all Christians to join in on, whether they believe the fullness of Torah applies or not. So share it around. We're hoping to edify people. We're hoping to help heal marriages and, help people have good prospects for their children in the future.
Hey, I just figured it out. We're multi-streaming on Facebook and YouTube. This is a comment on YouTube.
Oh, on Facebook?
On Facebook. That's why Facebook
okay.
allows more characters.
Cool.
We weren't looking over at the stream.
I'm like, is he hidden from the channel? We just don't know it.
No, it wouldn't come up through the thing, but we're live right now we got 2 people watching us.
By the way, Dr. Phil would totally get he would get roasted by Red Pill guys for his little act in the middle of the show there where he was looking at his wife. Because, he was kind of putting off a little bit of a...
Like his wife wasn't doing this stuff.
Yeah, he wouldn't... Like Dr. Phil wouldn't mind if Robin was a little more submissive and maybe didn't wear the sweatpants so often. I will say, ladies, I had a moment in our marriage where I realized that my comfortable clothes that I wore around the house were essentially the same as my pajamas that I would wear to bed at night. And Sean never complained about that. He never said a word about it, but I started to feel like I wanted to put a little more effort into how I was dressing around the house. And I started buying lots of dresses, lots of comfortable dresses that I can work in. And
then you got pregnant.
Do things around the house in. So I do think it's okay to put a little effort into how we look around the house. So, but yeah, let us know what you think in the comments, guys.
Thanks, guys. We love you. Appreciate you guys. Like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support what we do, there's ways down below, whether YouTube membership or Patreon. There's extra content that you can access through those. So you can over 100 plus hours of extra content you can listen to, biblical teachings, other reactions,
line by line scripture studies.
You can download the contextual study guide at the family tiers. Yeah. So yeah, we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.